Good evening. Recently, I was visiting Bhatinda in Punjab because of an epidemic of suicides that are taking place across the country. Punjab used to be the most prosperous agricultural region in India. Today, every farmer is in debt and despair. Vast stretches of land have become waterlogged desert. And as an old farmer pointed out, even the trees have stopped bearing fruit because heavy use of pesticides have killed the pollinators, the bees and butterflies. And Punjab is not alone in experiencing this ecological and social disaster. Last year I was in Warangal, Andhra Pradesh, where farmers have also been committing suicide. Farmers who traditionally grew pulses and millets and paddy have been lured by seed companies to buy hybrid cotton seeds, referred by the seeds merchants as white gold. This was supposed to make them millionaires. Instead, they have become paupers. Their native seeds have been displaced by new hybrids, which cannot be saved and need to be purchased every year at high cost. Hybrids are also very vulnerable to pest attacks. Spending on pesticides in Warangal has shot up by 2,000% from $2.5 million in 1980s to $50 million in 1997. Now, farmers are consuming the same pesticides as a way of killing themselves so that they can escape permanently from unpayable debt. The corporations are now trying to introduce genetically engineered seed, which will further increase costs and ecological risks. That is why farmers like Malla Reddy of the Andhra Pradesh Farmers Union had uprooted Monsanto's genetically engineered Bolgard cotton in Warangal. On March 27th this year, 25-year-old Betavati Ratan took his life because he could not pay back debts for drilling deep tube wells on his 2-acre farm in Warangal. The wells are now dry, as are the wells in Gujarat and Rajasthan, where more than 50 million people are facing a water famine. This drought is not just a natural disaster. It is man-made. It is the result of mining of scarce groundwater in arid regions to grow thirsty cash crops for exports instead of water-prudent food crops for local needs. It is experiences such as these that tell me that we are so wrong to be smug about the new global economy. I will argue in this lecture that it is time to stop and think about the impact of globalization on the lives of ordinary people. This is vital if we want to achieve sustainability. Seattle and the World Trade Organization protests last year have forced everyone to think again. Throughout this lecture series, people have referred to different aspects of sustainable development, taking globalization for granted. For me, it is now time radically to re-evaluate what it is that we are doing. For what we are doing in the name of globalization to the poor is brutal and unforgivable. This is especially evident in India as we witness the unfolding disasters of globalization, especially in food and agriculture. Who feeds the world? My answer is very different to that given by most people. It is women and small farmers working with biodiversity who are the primary food providers in the third world. And contrary to the dominant assumption, their biodiversity-based small farms are more productive than industrial monocultures. The rich diversity and sustainable systems of food production are being destroyed in the name of increasing food production. However, with the destruction of diversity, rich sources of nutrition disappear. When measured in terms of nutrition per acre and from the perspective of biodiversity, the so-called high yields of industrial agriculture or industrial farming, fisheries, do not imply more production of food and nutrition. Yields usually refer to production per unit area of a single crop. Output refers to the total production of diverse crops and products. Planting only one crop in the entire field as a monoculture will of course increase its individual yield. Planting multiple crops in a mixture will have low yields of individual crops, but will have high total output. Yields have been defined in such a way as to make the food production on small farms by small farmers disappear. This hides the production by millions of women farmers in the third world, farmers like those in my native Himalaya who fought against logging in the Chipko movement, who in their terrace fields even today grow jangora and marsha and tur and urad and gehet and soya bean and bhat. Endless diversity in their fields. From the biodiversity perspective, biodiversity-based productivity is higher than monoculture productivity. I call this blindness to the high productivity of diversity a monoculture of the mind, which creates monocultures in our fields and in our world. The Mayan peasants in the Chiapas in Mexico are characterized as unproductive because they produce only 2 tons of corn per acre. However, the overall food output is 20 tons per acre when the diversity of their beans and squashes, their vegetables, their fruit trees are taken into account. In Java, small farmers cultivate 607 species in their home gardens. In sub-Saharan Africa, women cultivate 120 different plants. A single home garden in Thailand has 230 species, and African home gardens have more than 60 species of trees. Rural families in the Congo eat leaves from more than 50 species on their farm trees. And a study in eastern Nigeria found that home gardens occupying only 2% of the household's farmland accounted for half the farm's total output. In Indonesia, 20% of the household income and 40% of domestic food supplies come from the home gardens managed by women. Research done by FAO has also shown that small, biodiverse farms produce thousands of times more food than large industrial monocultures. And diversity, in addition to giving more food, is the best strategy for preventing drought and desertification. What the world needs